Hello, thanks for joining us. Here's what's happening right now. A 2-year ban for Canada's most decorated Olympian, Penny Oleksiak.
They take the rules of anti-doping very, very seriously.
Why the swimming legend says it has nothing to do with drugs.
This battle is shifting to the younger generation.
A stark warning from pipeline critics ahead of an expected deal.
There may be a question about whether he's entitled to any of the money.
Plus, why a senior who claimed $1 million lotto prize is now facing fraud charges.
CTV National News with Sandy Ronaldo.
Hello, I'm Marcia McMillan in today for Sandy. A major setback for Canadian swimmer Penny Oleksiak. The International Testing Agency has banned her from competition for 2 years for violating anti-doping rules. CTV's John Venevali-Rao is on this story tonight. John, what do we know so far?
Marcia, to be clear, there is no doping evidence here, but Oleksiak has been banned for failing to properly let anti-doping officials know of her whereabouts on 3 different occasions. Now, Oleksiak is, of course, one of the country's most decorated female Olympians. She is a 7-time Olympic gold medalist and 9-time World Championship medalist. Under anti-doping rules, athletes must notify authorities of their whereabouts and be available for testing. But the International Testing Agency says 3 times she failed to provide that information. Now, Oleksiak had earlier this year accepted a voluntary suspension. The International Testing Agency says she didn't contest the anti-doping rule violation and has agreed with the consequences. A 2-year sanction, meaning she can't compete until July of 2027. Now, back in July of this year, in an Instagram post, Oleksiak said, "I want to emphasize that this whereabouts case does not involve any banned substance. It's about whether I updated my information correctly. I am and always have been a clean athlete."
It's reality. It's rules. They take the rules of anti-doping very, very seriously. And, whether it's a mistake or not a mistake, however you want to look at it, it's unfortunate for Penny, but at the same time, it's the rules, and we abide by those.
Oleksiak's suspension does end a year before the next Summer Olympics. But being unable to compete for 2 years will make it much more difficult to come back to the sport. Marcia.
John, thank you. We could be days away from the announcement of an agreement between the federal government and the province of Alberta to move forward on a new pipeline. Prime Minister Mark Carney will be in Calgary on Thursday, and sources say he and Alberta Premier Danielle Smith will sign a so-called Memorandum of Understanding that would lead to the construction of a pipeline to BC's coast. CTV's Mike Lecouture now on the proposed pipeline and BC's strong opposition to it. Mike.
Marcia, a senior federal source tells CTV News the final timing of the announcement is subject to change, but there's already plenty of reaction right across the country.
We fought successfully, I might add, so many pipeline battles in British Columbia.
A stern warning from the president of the Union of BC Indian Chiefs. His group is firmly behind coastal First Nations in opposing a pipeline in that region.
At the end of the day, if things go sideways, then we're out on the ground. We're, at the designated sites.
Grand Chief Stuart Phillip wouldn't say if that could include rail and road blockades like those that sprung up in 2020 in support of the Wet'suwet'en hereditary chiefs who were protesting another energy project.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre wants to know when the signing of a Memorandum of Understanding with Alberta will lead to shovels in the ground.
On what date will construction begin on a pipeline from Alberta to the Pacific?
Prime Minister Mark Carney said that's not the point of the agreement.
The Memorandum of Understanding that we're negotiating with Alberta creates necessary conditions, but not sufficient conditions, because we believe in cooperative federalism. We believe the government of British Columbia has to agree. We believe that First Nations right holders in this country have to agree and support.
BC's premier is against a proposed pipeline, and one former deputy minister of the environment is concerned ecological impacts aren't being considered.
Last year, the world had 10 oil tanker spills, so this is a serious concern for the North Coast. and of course the impacts on climates.
While the Prime Minister was talking about collaboration with provinces, the Minister of Natural Resources, Tim Hodgson, reminded Canadians that the ultimate jurisdiction for interprovincial pipelines rests with the federal government. Marcia?
Mike, thank you for that. So let's bring in Vashi Capello. She's in Calgary today. Vashi, this is a crucial test for Carney and the country. Does BC have any recourse?
Well, it depends, certainly, Marcia, who you ask. And I'll point out quickly, I am in Calgary. The city is abuzz at the prospect of what is going to be announced in a few days with the Prime Minister and the Premier. On the question of BC, I say it depends on who you ask, because if you listen to what the Prime Minister said there, he did make it sound as though BC had to agree in order for anything to go forward, an effective veto of sorts. But Mike is correct to point out that the Minister of Natural Resources, Tim Hodgson, later said, no, constitutionally, it's clear that the federal government does have jurisdiction here. And he is correct. Constitutionally, that is the case, which means that BC doesn't effectively have a veto, nor do First Nations. However, the bar is extremely high for what the federal government has to do to meet conditions, or any pipeline proponent, I should be more specific, to meet conditions in order to move things forward. That is a very complicated process, and I think it's fair to also point out at this point, there is not actually a private proponent, perhaps not yet. Marcia?
Vashi Capello is joining us from Calgary. Vashi, thank you for that. The Prime Minister admitted today he used a poor choice of words when asked about when he last spoke to Donald Trump. Here's what he said Sunday.
Who cares? I mean, it's a detail. It's a detail. I spoke to him. I'll speak to him again when it matters.
So he was criticized about those comments today in question period.
Before the election, he promised elbows up. After, it was, who cares?
I made a promise to Canadians. When I make a mistake, I'll admit it. That was a poor choice of words about a serious issue.
Mark Carney is considering a trip to Washington next week for a World Cup event. We have heard a lot of talk since Donald Trump's re-election about Americans wanting to move to Canada. But a new bill passed by the House of Commons last week is making it easier for some to apply for Canadian citizenship. And that has resulted in an uptick of American applications. CTV's Heather Wright caught up with one woman trying to become a Canadian. Heather.
Well, Marcia, we spoke with a couple of Americans, both with different reasons for wanting their Canadian citizenship, but both have an affinity to Canada and wanted to make it official.
Shani Muldoon has always felt Canadian, despite not actually having Canadian citizenship.
I have always felt this affinity for Canada.
Her grandfather was born in British Columbia, but her father never got his citizenship, and so she never qualified to get hers until now.
When this new bill was proposed, I already had all my documents ready.
The new bill is the so-called Lost Canadians legislation, which passed the House of Commons last week. It means citizenship can be passed down to people born or adopted abroad beyond the first generation. It comes after a 2009 law limiting how citizenship was passed down was deemed unconstitutional by Ontario's Superior Court.
Given the current state of the United States administration, I think it's important to kind of have that in the back pocket.
Caitlin Murphy is a midwife in upstate New York whose maternal great-grandparents were Canadian. She received her Canadian citizenship earlier this year under interim changes made while the legislation was working its way through Parliament, and plans to move to Canada in the next 2 years.
Over the past however many years, it's just kind of been reaffirmed to me, like this is not the place that is supportive of our beliefs.
Immigration consultants have seen a surge in interest in Canadian citizenship, but caution, it's not a rubber stamp.
It's not sort of a free-for-all type of an application, but I think it's still worth attempting for many people who see that they have either parent, grandparent, great-grandparent who may have been born in Canada.
Experts say given the interest in Canadian citizenship, lengthy waits are to be expected as all of these applications are processed. Marcia.
Heather, thank you. A young person in Toronto has been arrested and charged in a terrorism case as a result of a coordinated investigation involving multiple Canadian police services and the NYPD. According to the RCMP, the charges include participating in the activities of a terrorist group by editing and posting ISIS propaganda videos and soliciting firearms for the purpose of carrying out terrorist activity. The alleged suspect can't be identified because of their age. A Toronto senior accused of claiming a $1 million lottery jackpot for himself instead of splitting the winnings with a group is now facing charges. CTV's Adrian Gabriel has more on the case that might alarm group lotto players. Adrian.
Marcia, many Canadians, myself included, have at least entertained the idea of winning a lottery ticket. Well, when Toronto man's dream appeared to come true when he bought a $1 million winning ticket right here in this store. He's now been charged with theft and fraud.
The sweet sound of one lotto win may have turned into $1 million scheme.
Winner, Gagnon.
A joint investigation by the Ontario Provincial Police and the province's Lottery and Gaming Corporation have led to charges that allege that this man, 70-year-old Alex Perucha from Toronto, falsely claimed a $1 million lotto win as his own when he should have split the winnings with two others.
At Lotto Max, you have a 1 in 33 million chance of winning.
In a news release touting the $1 million payday this summer, Perucha is quoted as saying, "I won a free play, so I went to the store to claim it." The next day, he reviewed his numbers and says, "I double-checked my ticket and counted the zeros. When I realized it was a $1 million prize, I was overwhelmed." The winning Lotto Max free play ticket with Encore, purchased here at this Toronto corner store, was claimed on July 2nd, 2025, and was paid out by the OLG.
When you go into the lottery office in Ontario, you're asked specifically, are you a member of a group? And if you say, no, I'm not, and then you sign that form, that's a false statement because it's a sworn statement.
The senior citizen has been charged with theft over $5,000 and fraud over $5,000.
The maximum penalty is 14 years in jail. Pretty serious stuff.
An email from the 70-year-old's lawyer in part states that Mr. Perucha categorically denies all allegations and charges related to the lottery ticket and maintains he has done nothing wrong, going on to claim the dispute involves complex facts that will be addressed through the proper legal process. Though if he's found guilty, his share of the winnings could go up in smoke.
There may be a question about whether he's entitled to any of the money.
If you're purchasing lotto tickets with friends and families as a group, there are forms that you can use. Mr. Perucha will plead his case in court on January 8th. Marcia.
Adrian, thank you. Some sad news to share from the world of sports and broadcasting. Curling legend and pioneering reporter Colleen Jones has died of cancer. Jones' career included multiple curling titles, and she was a fixture on CBC News for decades. CTV's Paul Hollingsworth has more on her life and legacy from Halifax. Paul.
Marcia, Colleen Jones was a legend and a champion in curling, locally, nationally, and internationally. And in a community that reveres its sports heroes, there has been an outpouring of emotion following the news of her death.
If there's a photo of greatest female curlers ever, she's got to be in the front row. Could be in the middle, maybe to the right. She's in the front row. A pioneer, the first to really embrace sports psychology, and a leader, completely unfazed by what others thought of her.
A two-time world and six-time Canadian women's champion, Jones competed at the Scotties Tournament of Hearts 21 times. Curling fans in Halifax are mourning the loss following Jones' battle with cancer.
She was there till the bitter end. She didn't give up easily.
I remember her smile. That's what I remember, and yeah, a big team player, and I got tears in my eyes when I found out she had died.
She wasn't afraid to be herself and to play the game with the passion that she felt for it.
The Halifax native also enjoyed a broadcasting career that lasted more than 40 years, and she covered 11 Olympic Games for CBC.
She's one of our greatest ever sporting legends. She did it the right way. She was affable and personable, balanced three major careers. You think about curling, familyhood, motherhood, and a broadcasting career that was of national renown. A remarkable woman who left a huge mark.
Colleen Jones was inducted into Canada's Sports Hall of Fame, the Canadian Curling Hall of Fame, and the Nova Scotia Sport Hall of Fame. And she was also appointed to the Order of Canada. Colleen Jones was 65. Marcia.
All right, Paul, thank you for that. Coming up, a push for peace gains momentum. As Russia strikes and a deadline looms, how close is a deal to end the war? Four more arrests have been made in connection to the stunning Louve robbery last month. 2 men and 2 women are now in custody, though the Paris prosecutor did not reveal what role they may have played in the heist. On October 19th, 4 thieves made off with French crown jewels well worth over $100 million in a brazen daylight robbery that made headlines. The high-profile incident raised doubts about the world-famous museum's ability to guard its precious objects. So far, there's still no trace of the stolen jewels. Ukraine's allies, including Canada, met virtually today to discuss a U.S.-backed peace deal to end the war. Key issues remain, but the country's president says he's ready to meet Trump again as an American-imposed deadline looms and the violence ramps up. CTV's Joy Malbin has been following developments from our Washington bureau today. Joy.
Marcia, the White House is projecting optimism, saying there's been tremendous progress. But as the peace talks go on, so is the war.
Even with peace proposals on the table, Moscow is not letting up. Overnight, hundreds of drones and missiles pounded Ukraine's capital, Kyiv. A massive, deadly attack. Officials rescuing children from an apartment complex. This after talks in Geneva produced a framework for a possible peace deal.
Today, our team reported on the new draft of steps, and this is indeed the right approach. I will discuss sensitive issues with President Trump.
Ukraine's president wants to meet President Donald Trump in the next few days to finalize details of a new 19-point plan, heavily modified from the original proposal that critics called a Russian wish list that had Ukraine handing over territory to Russia, slashing Ukraine's army, and renouncing NATO membership.
We have no compromise on the sovereignty and territorial integrity of Ukraine. No compromise on national identity on Ukraine. No compromise on the armed forces of Ukraine as a key security guarantee.
Washington insists these aren't insurmountable details, sending U.S. Army Secretary Dan Driscoll to meet with Russian officials in the United Arab Emirates. But even after that red carpet rollout in Anchorage last summer, Russia's Vladimir Putin has not budged.
President Trump was not able to get anything from Russia. He was not even able to get them to come to a ceasefire, something that Ukraine agreed a while ago. And so while these negotiations happen, Russia continues attacking us.
Donald Trump weighing in, saying tremendous progress has been made, but says he'll only meet with President Zelensky and President Putin when the deal to end this war is final or in its final stages. Marcia?
All right, Joy, thank you. Still ahead, a promising drug sidelined by a stock collapse. Why a Canadian company claims its stock prices were manipulated. A Canadian research company has a promising drug that could offer a new treatment for multiple sclerosis. But that drug faced huge barriers in getting to patients, not because of the science, but because of the stock market. W5's John Woodward joins me now. And John, the company believes its stock prices were manipulated?
Yeah, the company says it faced a major stock market collapse. Some of its investors lost 98% of their investment. And this is despite good news coming in about its various products, including one that was on video that we can show you right now. A mouse given this drug after it's being given nerve damage, similar to multiple sclerosis. 6 weeks later, it's walking around. That generated enormous investor interest, but the stock dropped. And we talked to an Ontario-based animator who has MS. He believed in it so much he joined the company's board, but that stock crash, he said, hurt investors and the company's ability to get that drug to market.
Alex Barr had believed in the product so much he joined the company's board. He said the low share price sent the company into a tailspin.
And as a result of that, it means that it's much harder to raise money. And if they can't raise money, they can't do the trials to prove that the research works for people like me. And that drug will never become accessible to people who need it.
So stocks rise and fall all the time. What makes Quantum think there's something different going on here?
So they did their own investigation, and that's most of what our three-part series that's coming up this week is about, looking at their analysis of the trading data in Canada and the United States, and how they say that's the data that sparked a $700 million lawsuit against the major Canadian institutions.
John, we look forward to it. Thank you so much. After the break, a truly wild encounter. What happens when a sea lion crashes a sunrise swim? A cold plunge in the Pacific in November is not for the faint of heart, but two hardy swimmers on Vancouver Island got even more than the frigid dip they expected when a sea lion joined the party. CTV's BC Bureau Chief Andrew Johnson has the story. Andrew, looks like things escalated quickly.
It sure did, Marcia. What started as a cool, up-close encounter with marine life ended with two shivering men making a run for it.
A sunrise cold plunge for two pals became much more when a sea lion decided to get up out of the water to take a closer look.
Oh my God. Oh my God!
And with that, the swim was cut short.
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
The two men scrambling out of the ocean off Victoria are Ennio Titarenko and Andrew Wierzbicki, a mortgage broker and a realtor. For one of them, the water is an acquired taste.
I'm scared to death of the ocean. I mean, I'm a prairie boy, and so the ocean, it scares me, and that's also another reason why I like getting in there, do something that scares me every day.
That's why when a sea lion appeared a few feet away, Andrew reacted like this.
He's way too close.
Dude, it's okay.
It is not okay.
The more confident of the pair, Ennio, is a former commercial diver.
So I'm like, oh, just forget about it. He's not gonna hurt us. He's just probably gonna, just saying hi.
He did not anticipate this.
He didn't want us in the water. We respected that. We got out of the water pretty quickly.
Leaving was the right move, according to one expert, but he says slow and steady actually wins this race.
Best thing anybody can do, whether it's with a sea lion or a grizzly bear, is to slowly back away from the situation. And don't falsely assume that it's all going to be fine.
He offers one more piece of advice.
Trust your gut instincts before you trust your best friend.
I'll never listen to you on that shit again.
Our expert figures the sea lion was probably as scared as the swimmers and also appears to have gotten out of there as quickly as possible. A day all parties involved may not soon forget. Marcia.
Thank you, Andrew. 3 was a crowd. That is our newscast for today. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm Marcia McMillan. Your local CTV News starts right now.